What is up, Earthlings? The world is getting a little bit crazy. Zube here. If you're interested in a tarot or astrology reading, my information is down below. But today is just going to be kind of like story time. I was thinking about when I was in rehab. Okay. So before rehab, I was in a mental hospital for being suicidal. And then I was in the mental hospital for about 8 days. I had to leave because I was like good enough, to get out. But I definitely didn't feel done. And when I got out of the mental hospital, I stayed sober for 30 days. And then I started drinking again, whatever. But anyway, in rehab, we had this saying, secrets make you sick. And I can remember one day in particular, we were having a meeting, and I had a secret, and it was something that I was so embarrassed and ashamed about that when it really, really boils down to it, that's part of the reason that I was suicidal. Because someone else had access to that secret, and I don't know if they felt like, or if they actually used it against me, or if I feel like they did. But anyway, it's neither here nor there. But so in this, it was probably an in-house AA meeting or whatever. But in this AA meeting, I decided one day, I was like, I'm going to tell the girls, my girls, the secret. And I did. And I was crying. And I mean, I could barely get it out, but I did get it out. Right. And then everybody, it was just something that was very incongruent with, how I'm perceived by other people. And I'll get to that in a minute. But when I told them this secret, I was ready for anything, like, wow, you are really fucking sick, or holy shit, like you really do suck, or whoa, or even just like nothing but like the eyes, like the judgment eyes. And it was quiet for a second. And I think everybody was just honoring the fact that I was crying. And then after like a minute or so, somebody started to snicker. And I was like, I looked up and I kind of smiled. Like I let it out. And I finally felt free. And granted, I'm in rehab where, people are like, people have done horrible things. Like, I'm sure people who don't go to AA meetings just do horrible things, but don't tell their secrets to other people. And there are other kinds of sicknesses than, drinking alcohol. I'm kind of grateful for that sickness because I could like look at other sicknesses that way. I've said that before, but anyway, and I smiled and I was like, and then everybody started laughing and they were like, okay, like that's pretty bad, but you were going to kill yourself over it. And okay, so here goes. When I was suicidal, I didn't feel like I was living my life as me. I didn't feel authentic, And I'm like this multifaceted human being who does good shit and dumb shit and like is really kind and really an asshole. And we're all that way. Like people are so complicated, you guys. Like I'm complicated. And, I was watching, I talk sometimes about posting things underneath, and I realized that I never do it because I'm just kind of, I just forget or start doing something else, or it doesn't feel like enough people watch to warrant me doing like extra work or whatever. But I really am going to post 2 videos down below, because I watched a discussion with Brittany at American Shade and this other girl, Africa. And they were, in short, they were talking about self-censorship, especially as it pertains to being on the left. And this is, again, it's just really complicated. But I don't necessarily feel on the left anymore, but I self-censor, and that's what they were talking about, is self-censoring within that group, because there's like a backlash, or there are a lot of assumptions about you if you don't, if you don't kind of have all of the same beliefs that they have. And so I had been on the left, and then when I got out of rehab, I didn't belong to anything but AA and getting fucking better in my own life. But while I was getting sober, I stumbled upon Jordan Peterson, and I mean, he really was integral in me taking responsibility for like the shitty life that I had all around me. But it was my life. And he helped me clean it up, by watching his lectures and stuff like that. And I just felt like he had so much heart in him. And I just watched an interview today where Jordan Peterson and his daughter Mikhaila interviewed this girl, Africa. And but what Brittany and Africa were talking about is that Africa had decided she didn't like Jordan Peterson simply because the left didn't like him. It's more, everything is complicated. But anyway, and I just like felt that so much. And one of the things that I'm really struggling with right now, no, it is a struggle. I'll be real. It is kind of a struggle. There's a part of me that's like keeping myself happy and out of mental hospitals and rehabs. It's that part actually isn't all that hard, but I've got a very difficult like situation in my life, and it's one that does cause me sorrow. So keeping myself happy, and with meaning in my life and moments of joy to celebrate that make the sorrow easier to handle, that's like a full-time job for me. And then on the other hand, and so sometimes I just don't have discussions about things or share stuff because I don't want to deal with it, right? And so it's this, I don't want to deal with it, that I'm really digging in and looking at, because I also want to be me, and to just have that, like, to have it be acceptable to say who I am and what I'm doing without telling anybody else what to do or who they are. And just have it, even if people disagree with me or even don't like me, like that's okay too, and I'll admit I'm still working on that being disliked thing, but I've had a lot of practice being disliked. And sometimes I talk to myself and I'm like, words really don't hurt. That's funny because I haven't even, I think Dave Chappelle has a little dust up going on around him too. And I think the thing was called sticks and stones. Like we say that. And the weird thing is verbal abuse hurts, emotional abuse hurts. Yes, it does. I'm in a place where I tell myself, like, those are just words and they literally don't hurt me. Like, people could say a lot of things to me and I might react in the moment, although I'm getting better about that. But I can always come back to a place, whether it's afterwards or even in that moment, where I'm like, all right, like I'm not gushing blood, you know, like, and and do I believe that? And I feel it in my stomach if I believe it or not, because if I believe if in any tiny part of me, if I believe what was said about me, then I have to look at it. Because if somebody says something to me that I don't feel in here, then it won't bother me at all, you know. Anyway, I wanted to read. I got Stuart Wilde here. I read something today that I wanted to share, but called Infinite Self. 33 Steps to Reclaiming Your Inner Power. This book is amazing. It's amazing. Okay. Extremes of negative emotion are like a nuclear bomb going off inside your metaphysical energy. You have to control the balance fast. So as soon as you find yourself getting out of control, pull back and sit down. Visualize yourself standing above yourself. Look back at this lovely person that is you and ask yourself, what's upsetting her or what's he angry about? And I do that a lot. I step outside of me and I'm like, why is she hurt? Why is she so upset about that? And there's something about being outside of this physical body that has that emotion in it, um, that makes that gives me compassion for me who is experiencing that, you know. And the funny thing is, that's what I try to do for other people. Like when somebody is saying something hurtful toward me, I do try to get in that compassionate place and be like, okay, so they have something going on, you know. Or after, I'm like, is there truth to that? I always evaluate things that are emotionally turbulent after they happen, you know, and I look for kernels of truth and I look for responsibility in me. But I do give compassion to someone who might have been lashing out because of something that's going on with them. And so why wouldn't I do that for myself? And it's easier to do that for myself when I imagine myself outside of my body. Anyway, so when I read that, I stepped outside of me and I was like, what are you afraid of? Um, you know, and I guess it's that it's like we see fractions of people, you know, and I think it's totally human to show different parts of yourself to different people. I mean, that's just how we've learned. And I try to do that less and less. Like I'm conscious of how I'm acting. And I think that across the board, my behavior is pretty similar at this point. But that's not how it's always been. And you know, I can believe this one thing and believe this other thing, and somebody else might love this one thing and really hate this other thing. And the incongruency is not that they might have is not my problem, and maybe they won't like me and maybe people won't talk to me, and like that would, well, okay, that would save my time or not save my time. Like maybe they just creep on me to like dislike what I'm saying, or I don't know. It's just interesting, but it all kind of starts, this whole train of thought started for me with secrets make you sick, because we are very complicated, but sometimes it can be pared down to something very simple, you know. And there are just there are parts of me that I wish I was being more open about, to be honest. And I'm not, because at this point, I'm trying to suss out what's not my job and like I'm my job, and what feels right for me to say. But there definitely is like a self censorship that I have going on sometimes with regard to people who have and still do mean a lot to me. Anyway, I wanted to share that. I'm not telling you what any of it is, Neener. I told you a little bit about it, but I got to get going. I hope you're having a great night on Earth, wherever you are on the planet. Maybe it's morning. I'll see you next time. Peace. Namaste.